The royal palace of Velara stood at the heart of the crystalline capital, its spires reaching toward the heavens like frozen fire. For centuries, it had been a place of ceremony and command, where the queens will rippled across the stars. Yet on this day, the grandeur of the throne room seemed strangely subdued. Queen Seralith sat upon her throne, every inch the image of regality. Her silvered skin shimmered faintly under the light, her jeweled crown a symbol of dominion over countless worlds. But behind her poised exterior was a hollow ache that had endured for decades. The loss of her only child, Princess Alira. Stolen from the palace when she was but a child, Alira's fate had haunted her every day since. Searches had spanned star systems, fleets had combed hostile sectors, yet no trace of her had ever been recovered. The galaxy whispered rumors. Some said the princess had been sold, others that she had perished, but the queen had never stopped hoping. On this day, that hope stirred again. The grand doors opened with a slow creak, and into the hall strode a figure utterly out of place among the radiant courtiers and armored guards. A human male. His boots were scuffed, his jacket patched in too many places, and his posture spoke not of submission but of resilience. The courtiers muttered in disbelief. Humans were a young species, hardly acknowledged in Velara's spheres of influence. For one to stand before the queen was shocking enough. But the man was not empty-handed. At his side, half hidden behind his broad frame, stood a girl. Her features were distinctly Velaran. Silvered skin, luminous eyes, delicate crown-like ridges upon her brow. She wore no royal garb, only simple travel-worn clothing, but her very presence caused a murmur to ripple through the room. The queen rose abruptly, her voice trembling despite her command of tone. "Who dares bring this child before me?" The human bowed. Not clumsily, but with a kind of straightforward respect. "My name's Daniel Hayes, Majesty, and I believe I've brought you something. Someone. You've been missing." He stepped aside, revealing the girl fully. She shifted nervously under the weight of so many stares, but when her gaze met the queen's, time seemed to fracture. The resemblance was undeniable. "Alira," Seralith whispered, her voice breaking. She descended the steps of her throne, regal composure forgotten as raw emotion surged to the surface. Trembling hands reached out, afraid this was a dream that might shatter. The girl hesitated before whispering, "Mother!" The single word pierced the silence, and the entire court gasped. For decades, the queen had known only emptiness where her daughter had been. Now, before her eyes, that void was filled. Yet questions clawed at her mind. How had the child survived? Where had she been taken? And why was it a human who now returned her? Seralith's eyes snapped to Daniel. "Explain," she demanded, her voice unsteady but fierce. And so, the human began his story. All eyes in the throne room fixed on the human. The courtiers' whispers swirled like a storm, some dismissing the claim as audacity, others marveling at the resemblance between the girl and the queen. Daniel Hayes stood steady under their scrutiny, his voice calm but carrying the weight of lived hardship. "I didn't find her in a palace or some noble estate," he began. "I found her in the mud of a border world, a place where no one cares about law, where the strong take and the weak disappear." Gasps rippled through the chamber, but Daniel pressed on. "She was a slave," he said bluntly, "sold and resold, beaten when she wouldn't obey. By the time I came across her, she was little more than skin and bone." His eyes softened as he glanced toward the girl, who lowered her gaze, ashamed of memories she could not erase. The queen's hands clenched into fists. The idea that her daughter, her heir, had been reduced to such indignity sent waves of fury radiating through her. The guards bristled, ready to rush off on her command to burn entire sectors in vengeance. But Seralith held her silence, forcing Daniel to continue. "I was running cargo at the time," he said, "and a slaver ship came into port. I don't usually meddle, but something about her." He shook his head. "She wasn't broken. Not fully. Most people in chains, you see it in their eyes, they've given up. But she hadn't. Not yet." The princess's lip trembled, tears glimmering in her luminous eyes. "So I bought her," Daniel admitted. "Didn't pay much. The slavers thought she was useless, a waste of coin. But to me," he shrugged, "she was worth saving." "You risked your life for her?" one counselor asked incredulously. Daniel's reply was simple. "What's life worth if you don't help someone who needs it?" That answer silenced the room. In the Valoran court, strength, power, and political advantage were the usual currencies. The human spoke of something different, something alien to many of them, selfless choice. Seralith studied him closely, her gaze sharp as a blade. "You claim to have rescued her. Yet how do you explain this resemblance? Why should I believe she is my daughter and not some impostor?" Daniel gestured gently to the girl. "Ask her yourself." The child took a hesitant step forward. Her voice was quiet, but every syllable carried weight. She spoke of her earliest memories. Running through the crystal gardens of the palace, chasing luminous birds that glowed like lanterns. Her mother's voice singing lullabies woven with light. The day of her abduction, confusion, shouting, and the terror of being ripped away from warmth into darkness. Every detail struck Seralith like a blade through the heart. Only Illyra could have known those moments. The queen's composure broke again. She fell to her knees before her daughter, embracing her with trembling arms. The girl stiffened at first, still haunted by years of cruelty, but slowly, she melted into the warmth of her mother's hold. The court erupted in cries of shock and disbelief, but the queen silenced them with a single look. Her daughter had been returned. Yet as she held Illyra close, her gaze never left the human who had brought her home. Gratitude burned in her chest, but so did questions. Who was this man, really? The reunion between queen and daughter left the court shaken. Many courtiers wept openly, while others whispered in disbelief, their minds racing to calculate what this miracle meant for the balance of power. But Queen Seralith was not finished. She held Illyra close for a long moment before rising, her regal presence restored, though her eyes still glistened. She turned her gaze upon Daniel Hayes. "You brought my daughter home, human. For that, I owe you more than words. But I must know why? What do you want in return?" The question hung heavy in the air. In Valoran courts, no action was without motive. Every gift demanded repayment. Every kindness concealed ambition. The courtiers leaned forward eagerly, expecting the human to reveal his true aim: wealth, land, influence. Daniel scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "Honestly, I don't want anything." The chamber erupted in incredulous mutters. "Impossible," one counselor hissed. "No one risks their life for nothing." Seralith raised a hand for silence, her piercing eyes never leaving Daniel. "You ask for no gold, no title, no reward? You could demand entire fleets for this deed." Daniel shrugged. "I didn't do it for fleets. I did it because she deserved to live free. That's it." The courtiers scoffed, unable to comprehend. But Seralith felt a chill ripple through her. Was it truly possible that this human had acted without selfish motive? It was unthinkable. And yet, his steady gaze carried no guile, no hidden hunger. Still she pressed. "And yet, in bringing her here, you risked the wrath of slavers, syndicates, and warlords. Surely you understood the danger." "Of course," Daniel said simply. "But she was worth it." The words struck deeper than he could have known. To Seralith, who had carried decades of guilt for failing to protect her daughter, hearing a stranger declare her child's worth so plainly was like balm and blade at once. Illyra clung tighter to her mother, whispering, "He never treated me like a burden. He called me Illyra even before I remembered who I was. He gave me back my name." The queen's chest tightened, torn between fierce maternal gratitude and the daunting weight of what this meant. If this human had restored her daughter's spirit, he had changed not just one life, but the course of a dynasty. She stepped closer, her voice low but steady. "You have done what no fleet, no army, no fortune could accomplish. Tell me, Daniel Hayes, what are you truly? A soldier? A mercenary? A thief with a conscience?" Daniel smirked faintly. "Just a man trying to do right when he can." The simplicity of the answer left the throne room unsettled. The courtiers could not fathom it, but the queen felt its truth. In her long reign, she had learned to see deception in every gesture. And this man's honesty was clearer than crystal. Her expression softened as she said, "Then perhaps the galaxy could use more men like you." But in the shadows of the hall, not all faces shared her sentiment. Already, some nobles whispered of the danger. A human who had earned the queen's favor was a human who could disrupt the balance of power. The throne room slowly quieted as the queen guided her daughter back to her side, settling her upon the throne's lower step like a jewel restored to its setting. Alira clung to her hand, eyes still wide, overwhelmed by the sudden shift from forgotten captive to heir apparent. Queen Serelith turned once more to Daniel, her voice firm but warmer than before. "You have returned to me what I thought lost forever. For that, human, I owe you a debt beyond measure. You will not leave my hall unrewarded." "I don't need a reward," Daniel replied again, scratching at the sleeve of his worn jacket. "I just needed her safe." The queen's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Humility does you credit. But understand, whether you wish it or not, you have altered the fate of my people. Acts such as yours cannot exist in silence. They ripple outward." The courtiers exchanged uneasy looks. Some whispered that the queen might grant the human lands or titles. Others feared he would become a symbol of human virtue in a court that valued cunning above compassion. Yet Serelith ignored their murmurs, her gaze fixed only on Daniel. "Then at least allow me this," she said. "You will always be welcome here. Should you call upon the throne of Velara, you will not be refused." Daniel inclined his head, not as a subject to a monarch, but as one equal showing respect to another. "That's more than enough, Majesty." Alira tugged gently at her mother's sleeve, then looked toward Daniel. "Will I see you again?" The question softened the queen's stern heart even further. Her daughter, scarred but alive, looked at the human not as a rescuer to be forgotten, but as someone she trusted. Daniel smiled. "I think so. The galaxy's big, but not that big." The queen studied the exchange, something unspoken stirring in her chest. This human had done what centuries of searchers could not, and in doing so, he had reminded her of something she had nearly lost herself, the belief that compassion could shape destinies as much as power. As Daniel turned to leave, the courtiers parted reluctantly, some glaring, others awed. He walked as he had entered, steady, unpretentious, carrying no treasure but having delivered one beyond price. When the doors closed behind him, Serelith looked down at Alira, brushing a strand of silvery hair from her face. "You are home now. No chain will touch you again." Alira leaned against her, whispering, "He saved me, mother, not because of who I was, but because he thought I mattered." The queen's heart clenched. She had ruled through power, through fear, through the weight of her crown. Yet it was a nameless human, overlooked by empires, who had restored to her what she thought forever lost. For the first time in decades, Serelith allowed herself to hope. Her daughter was home, the line of Velara endured, and somewhere among the stars, a human walked freely, forever bound to her heart and her people, not by duty, but by choice. And the court would remember this day, the day a queen regained her child, and the galaxy learned that even the smallest acts of a human could shift the fate of empires.